Welcome, everyone. This is August 18th Planning Board meeting. The first item is roll call, and we do have 6 out of the 7 Planning Board members here. Lee Buffington could not be here. We do have a letter with a couple comments from her. The next item is the review and approval or amending of the July 21 minutes. Anyone have corrections, comments?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Steve seconded. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. So there are, I don't believe, Carla, there are any, you don't have anything regarding minor changes as far as I saw. There are 2 items on the 2 agenda items tonight. The first is a public hearing for a recommendation to the town council on a proposed zone change to rezone a 3.35 acre portion of a 7.16 acre lot located at 22 Gray Road, Tax Assessor Map U20 Lot 66 from Village Center Commercial VCC zone to the Village Medium Density Residential Zone. And just as a reminder, this to all of us and those of you here and watching, tonight all we're doing is considering the zone change. If this were to be approved later, I believe that would then go to council, and later somebody would have to come back to us with the subdivision proposal for planning board full review. So I believe that, Bill, are you introducing this, or is Mr. Reynolds?
I was just going to introduce it on behalf of the town council.
Okay,
if that's
thank you.
okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Just a little bit of background. Like any property owner, anytime someone has a request for a zone change or an ordinance change, it typically has gone to the ordinance committee of the town council first. And that committee basically forwarded it to the full council, which at its last meeting voted to forward it to the planning board exactly in the process that you described, Mr. Chairman. Tonight is a public hearing and a recommendation for the planning board to hear from neighbors, support or opposition to the proposal, and for the board to give some type of recommendation back to the council. The council will take that recommendation. It's scheduled for a public hearing on Monday night. And at that point, they will decide whether to make the change or to the ordinance or to the zone or not. And if it does change, exactly like you stated, it only allows that process to begin. Tonight's process is to, honestly, if you know the board barn on Route 100, this drawing is just a very, very rough drawing. You have some detailed engineered drawings in your packet. But this just kind of gives you a snapshot of the neighborhood around the board barn and the proposed residential subdivision. This is a little bit deceiving. This large piece that's here that comes right up to Route 100 is pretty much a forested wetland area and pretty much undevelopable. What we have been able to secure with this project when they brought it forward to us is a drainage easement that runs parallel to this line all the way to Route 100. Right now, the town's biggest challenge out on Route 1, on the old Gray Road, is drainage. Many of the parcels, basically, there's no water, there's no place for the water to go right now. And when this project came forward, we basically asked, and with the project, if it goes forward, the applicant has agreed to grant the town a easement that would solve many of the drainage problems along Old Gray Road and would allow us to actually make road improvements that were actually improvements and not just kind of kicking the can down the road, because it's really difficult when you don't have a place for the water to go, and this would give us a place. Having said that, you saw in your packet the rest of the application. That's not my job tonight. My job is only to introduce it to you and to explain that Monday night the council will review it and make the final determination, and we'll take your recommendation and also take public hearing from the residents. So what I would encourage all of you who are here tonight to testify that Monday night at 7 o'clock that you also come back and share with the council your positive or negative feedback. And Tom Gruber, our town council chair, is in the back row tonight. Ron Kopp, the town councilor from West Cumberland, is here tonight as well. So you'll have ample opportunity to share, I'm sure, after this meeting with them as well. And they do take meetings in the hallway if you want to talk to them too. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that brief introduction. Michael Record is here, the owner of the lot. Doug Reynolds is here, and he will be representing the applicant and giving you an overview from here. Doug, all I have is up what you presented in slides, if you want to just use that, and I'll let you scroll through it and go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So, Doug, you are the engineer who's representing Michael Record, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Correct. Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Doug Reynolds with Goral Palmer, representing Mr. Michael Record this evening. He is with us in the back. As Mr. Manager indicated, we're proposing a zone change for a 3.3 acre portion of the Board Barn property. As you can see on the screen, it's the rear portion of the site facing Old Gray Road. The potential is to subdivide the property into three lots. Four additional lots to the Board Barn. Three being single-family homes, and one has got enough residential area for a duplex. The way we configured it was to have the single families to the south and have the duplex adjacent to the six unit Emerald Commons property. The zone change in this area is we're changing it to the I got to get the letters right. The VMDR zone, which is do we have the zone?
Just slide down.
Is it? Okay. As you can see on this one, the VDMR zone is all VMDR zone. Excuse me, is abutting the property in the rear along Old Gray Road, the Highland Avenue area, and again, this portion of the Board Barn property is what we're proposing to change, and it is immediately adjacent to the VMDR zone. Again, it was the owner's opinion that by placing residential units at the rear of this property, it would reduce the potential of a commercial property coming into this, buying the Board Barn, the whole property, and developing the property as a commercial site, which is allowed in the VCC zone. By creating these lots and building these residential homes, it maintains a buffer to the Route 100 corridor, to the homes on Old Gray Road and the neighborhood in the back there. As Bill mentioned, we're offering to the town the drainage easement to allow for the drainage to come from Old Gray Road, as that will be included in our subdivision application in the net residential density reductions for that lot. With that, that's what we're looking for. We'd be happy to answer questions, and we can go from there.
Thank you very much. The zone, the village medium density zone does require 20,000 square foot per residential lot and 20,000 per dwelling for duplexes, so that looks appropriate. The comment that the manager made regarding the wetlands, could you address that at all? Regarding how that would...
The wetlands have been subtracted from the net residential calculations. As you can see on the larger plan. How do I make this smaller? Yeah, I'm just looking for the zoom. Oh, there it is. Oops, zooming the wrong way.
So, but I think the main point of what I'm interested in is there are the 20,000 square feet available to be developed aside from the wetlands.
Correct. We have a net residential density table on our potential subdivision plan. As you can see on this map, Lot 2 is actually 34,000 square feet. But we've subtracted out the wetlands. Lot 5 is 68,000, subtracting the wetlands, subtracting the easement, we end up with 40,000 usable square footage to meet the density requirements.
All right, thank you. I have just one other question, and I'll open it to the board. So I've been in the board barn several times, and sometimes it's a pretty active area in terms of people, commercial as well as homeowners like myself. Would it be isolated, would the board barn somehow be isolated from the residential lots as you see it? Obviously, we're jumping ahead just a little, but I'm curious what your...
Again, we've provided that the board barn lot will meet all the setback requirements for the zone after the subdivision is made. Again, the rear, it would be assumed that the houses would go towards the front of closer to Old Gray Road than the back, because again, the wetlands are back there. So we'll keep a buffer to the board barn area.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Paul,
Members
can I
of Josh, yeah?
follow up on that? All right, let me see if I can get the letters correct. In the VCC, if a non-residential use goes in next to existing residential, to sort of backwards from this, but it does require a 50-foot buffer. Let me read it from and then that might make more sense. Where a proposed non-residential use will abut an existing residential zone, there will be a 25-foot landscape buffer within the required setback, which is a 50-foot rear setback. So I guess my question to you is, are you looking at doing a 50-foot rear setback with a 25-foot landscape buffer within that? And if not, Carla, this isn't a proposed non-residential use going next to existing, but it is proposed residential going next to existing non-residential. Would that criteria, would that requirement be applicable or not?
I think it would be.
So you'd want to have a 50-foot buffer on the backs of our residential.
No, it's a 50-foot, so the following setbacks are required for all structures in the VCC. The front is a 45, you're not changing it anyway. So rear, 50 feet, note, where a proposed non-residential use will abut an existing residential zone, there shall be a 25-foot landscape buffer within the required setback. So it would be a 25-foot landscape buffer within a 50-foot setback.
I see what you're saying. So between the board barn parking and the back of the residential.
Correct.
Okay. I believe we may not have exactly that, but we're pretty darn close. We can make sure that if we come forward with the subdivision plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jason?
Carla and Bill, what are the limits legally as far as changing the zoning on such a small scale? Like, aren't there limits to what we can do as far as like contract zoning or micro zoning? Oh,
Because you're not contract zoning.
what's that?
Carla, this wouldn't be a contract zone because we're not creating a specific zone. We're moving it from an existing zone into another existing zone, correct?
Right, so we're adjusting lot lines, basically, the zoning district lot lines, and you can do that. It's been done on Route 100 a couple of times before, where we've kind of annexed the next lot over and put it into another zone. So it's not contract zoning, it is just a request for a zone change. Planning board can look at whether they like the idea as it's proposed, whether they would like it less than what's being proposed, greater than what's being proposed. I mean, it's all open for discussion at this point.
So we're not obligated in any way to do one or the other, keep it the same or to change it?
No, it's a recommendation of the town council on whether you as the planning board feel that this is an appropriate land use change. To that end, I would tell you that I reviewed the comprehensive plan, which is a big basis for making decisions about these types of things, and there's really nothing in the comp plan either way about either increasing residential uses in the commercial area of Route 100 or not. So it's,
And this land doesn't have an attractive use, commercial use? Was that looked at, or is this just a matter of capitalizing, I guess, on house lots?
Again, it's open for lease now. I'm sure if somebody came through and wanted to put a Irving station there, he'd jump right all over that.
Yeah.
Just hasn't.
Basically
occurred.
following the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other, before we open it to the public? No? Steve?
Thank you, Paul. Just one comment before we go into the public hearing. I think what Doug and his client have done is put forth in good faith, a sketch of what could be presented to the planning board. But in fact, what we see on the screen right now is not, and has not been presented to the town in the form of an application.
Correct.
So that if the zone change were made, you could come back with something that looks very different.
It could look different in the fact that the lots may be slightly reconfigured, but as Carla said, we're changing the zone based on those lines. So again, there would be, it's going to be based on those lines when they change.
I just simply wanted to make the point for the benefit of the public that we're not really, as much as it is intriguing to look at that plan and to see what might be done, in fact, there's no application pending at this time that this plan, in fact, be approved.
Correct.
Thank you, Steve. At this time, then, I'll open it to the public for comments or questions, and I'd ask for you to, if you want to do that, come to the mic and just give us your name and residence.
Hi, my name is Linda Brewster, and I live at 27 Old Gray Road, which is directly across the street from this property. I have several concerns, but the biggest concern I have is that a number of years ago, our well went dry. And I guess one of my concerns is if we put houses in, if we rezone this, have we done water studies to make sure that there's adequate water in that area? We had to go down an extra 75 feet to find water. And so I definitely have a concern about adding 4 or 5 homes there with water. When we bought our house, and I may be wrong about this, but we purchased our home in 1979. And at that time, I thought it was zoned residential, rural residential at that time. We had to have 2 acres of land and we had to have 200-foot frontage. And if that was the case, when was it changed to this VMDR? Because when I saw that, I was very surprised because I was always under the understanding that the area that the homes are currently on was rural residential.
Yeah. Currently, it's VCC. I mean, they're asking to change it to medium.
No, I mean where my house is, not
Oh,
where.
I see.
So,
I certainly, can anyone on the board, or Carla or Bill, have any?
7 to 10 years ago.
7 to 10.
so when that was changed from rural residential to the VMDR, whatever those letters are, was there a water study done at that time? I didn't realize that the zoning had changed. I just didn't realize that the zoning had changed. And so I guess I would be concerned if there wasn't a water study at that time.
Can I answer that really
Yeah.
quickly? Because most of the homes out here are not on 2 acres. They're much smaller lots. You look at Forest Ave, Highland, Your lot is kind of, is that you right there, Linda?
No,
Is this?
that's me.
Okay.
And we actually purchased an extra 2 acres.
So I will share with you briefly that there is public water directly in front of the board barn now. So when they do get to the next stage, if they do get to the next stage, they have to provide that information to the planning board as part of the subdivision. And if they can't show that they can get adequate water supply, then they would more than likely have to extend the water main.
Okay, so are you saying that there will be an additional water study done of that area? Because
That's
the
part of the
resident-
planning board
The
review.
zoning is based on water studies.
That's correct, it was. And
Right.
a lot of the zones around town and on Route 100, there was a committee that Steve Moriarty was on, that studied this whole area for several years, had multiple public hearings, and it went to the planning board as well as the council several times when we went through that whole area and the zone changes that occurred in that area. And the VMDR was consistent with what the majority of the lot sizes were in that area.
So, but that has nothing to do with water.
Yeah, it had to do with what was existing, and all those people were on wells and septic at the time. And then water was brought out all the way down Route 100 in both directions as well in the last 10
But
years.
did you ask who ran out of water? Because I don't think I'm the only person in the neighborhood.
No, and it depends on where you are and what, if you're on the aquifer or not on the
But
aquifer,
I'm
there's a whole
right
bunch of
across the
things.
street from this proposal. Like, my well is
So,
right across.
Tonight is
Bill, could
not
you,
about the subdivision.
could you
Tonight is
repeat
really-
her question just for the
She's
benefit?
more concerned about, is there going to be a water study done with this proposal? And what I'm trying to explain, not very well, is that with all subdivision applications, one of the criteria is, is there adequate water supply to support this application? And that's a technical standard that the planning board reviews as part of that review. Tonight is really about the zone change only to allow that type of land use to occur. If they do the zone change and they can't prove that there's adequate water to supply the subdivision, then that application doesn't get approved. That's a whole different set of criteria. That's a whole different meeting in the future if they get that far. So tonight is about just the land use to allow residential housing. In the future, if it comes back, they would have to show that they have adequate capacity for wells and for septic and for other things, or they'd have to show they were going to extend the water main from Route 100. So those are all things that are down the road a little bit and not what the planning board's going to listen to tonight. It's really about allowing the houses there or leaving it as it is. Those are really kind of the two options.
I know, but you also understand my concern. in
Linda, go
terms-
ahead, if you get near the mic and
But
thank
you also
you.
understand my concern around doing the zone change and then doing a water study, because once you've changed the zone to a residential area. And right now, it does require a 50-foot buffer off from the old Gray Road over to, toward the board barn. So one of my main concerns is the water, because our well did run dry. And our well is in our front yard, which is directly across the street from this development. And the house, he's next door to me, and then there's a house next door to him, and the house next door to him also ran dry during that time. And that house is on the corner of Highland and the Old Gray Road. So I do have a large concern about water in that, directly in that area, because I would assume, I don't know what the aquifers are there. I don't know what the underground streams are, but so I hope that is taken into consideration. I also have concerns about the condition of the Old Gray Road. Up to my driveway, it's paved, but beyond my driveway, it's a dirt road. We have, if you go up that hill toward the Route 100, and at the end of the road, where it is a dirt road, that exit onto Route 100 is not a safe exit from the Old Gray Road to Route 100. That exit is at an angle that makes it very difficult to see traffic, and there have been many times when I've come out on that road and had to step on the gas because all of a sudden a car crested that hill. And so that is just a bad just a bad placement for the way that road came off Route 100. The road is also narrow. It's really a one-car road. It's not, it would need to be widened. It is not geared for more traffic. And the road is in very poor condition. The paved part is in poor condition, and the dirt part is in poor condition. It always has ruts in it and puddles. The road, the paved portion of the road is rounded, so the water comes off into our front yards. And in the wintertime, it will freeze. And so that's also a concern, not just the drainage on the side of the development, but then the drainage on the other side as well. Like that road poorly drains. The water sits on top of the ground because it's all clay. All of that land in there is clay. And so it just doesn't drain. So there needs to be drainage not just on one side of the road, there needs to be drainage on both sides of the road. And, you know, I live directly across the street from the board barn. You know, I didn't have anything to say about the board barn going in because that's zoned commercial, and, you know, but I will say that there is a direct view to Route 100 from across his house and my house. And so we can now hear the traffic from Route 100. And we have the turnpike behind us, so we hear the traffic from the turnpike behind us. So our road is kind of sandwiched in between the turnpike and Route 100. And one of my other concerns would be if there wasn't some tall buffer between the residential zone and the commercial land, that we will hear more and more of the traffic from Route 100 in that area. Because it is pretty loud. So I'll turn it over.
All right,
to
thank you. I'll make one comment regarding the road. I believe the part of, if it were to get to the subdivision stage, part of the assessment that we would make is looking at the Maine Department of Transportation recommendations that would consider a lot of what you said in terms of safety and so forth. So that would be along, like as that Bill was talking about, the water, the road would be considered, and it's a number of other issues, the stormwater obviously and drainage. So I mean, those are all things that we're not doing tonight, but would be considered later if it got to that stage.
I understand that, but you also have to realize that once you've changed the zone, you've changed the zone.
Well, again, what we're doing tonight is deciding what to recommend to the council. So, as Bill said, Monday night will be, if we were to, well, either way, the council will make the final decision Monday night, I believe.
And can I just ask one question? I don't know.
Yeah,
if-
absolutely.
I don't know if this is in order, but Jason, are you related to the board barn? No. Okay. I just had to ask.
Yeah. Linda, thank you very much.
Yes.
So the mic is open. Yes, sir. If you'd give your name and address.
My name is James Farrar. I live on 29 Old Gray Road, very close to this development. I've lived in that house since I was 13. It was my family home. I moved away for a couple of years, got married, and then moved back, started a family there. I raised my children in that house. It just seems like this is a huge development to shoehorn into a very small amount of space. Because in that area that they want to put in 5 units, there's only 2 houses on the left-hand side of the road. And so, I mean, it's a dramatic change to the neighborhood. And I think we need to think hard and fast before we make changes that can't be undone. I mean, you think about it, I remember Morrison's Hill. As a kid, I used to pet the cows on the hill. And now they have that, and excuse me if any of you guys voted for it, but that god-awful development that they flattened the land and dropped the house every 20 feet. Now that's something that we're gonna live with for the rest of our life because it's there, it's done. So, you know, I know things can't stay stagnant, and I would love to be able to live my final days and still see woods outside of my front yard. I know that's a little optimistic or altruistic, whatever you want to say, but I really think we need to think hard and fast before we make changes that can't be undone. The road is a horror show. When it rains out, the dirt part becomes almost impassable. That section where it comes out onto 100, we've had several meetings about the road, and that section is illegal. It's not supposed to be like that, but the whole neighborhood was put in. Can I show you?
Yes.
The whole neighborhood, this whole neighborhood here was connected. There used to be a road that went right alongside my house and went to Forest Lake. So all of these houses that Bill was saying.
Now if you could get back to the mic, because for people watching at home,
Oh,
they won't be able to hear you.
So
Thank you.
all of those smaller lots that fit the VMDR thing, it's not that they were compliant, it's the fact that they were somebody's camp about 67 years ago until the turnpike came and cut the neighborhood off. And then Stanley Brown, the developer, put a series of new houses in. And I believe, was yours the last that he did? Yeah. Other than that, most of the places are summer camps. And when it was changed to VMDR, I wish I had have known. I basically got a note saying, gee, guess what? It's VMDR. I had to look it up. You know, it just, you know, we really should be able to have a voice in how our neighborhood's going to look. Thank you.
Well, we would hope you would. Yeah, thank you very much. Still open to the public?
Hi, my name is Amanda Snow. Shane Williams. We live at 21 Old Gray Road, so we're the one house on the left on the dirt part. Don't have a lot to add, and I understand that tonight is not the night that the decisions are being made about potentially how the land is developed, but I did want to kind of add on to what Linda had mentioned about, you know, taking into consideration the quality of the road that is there currently. We have a son who likes to, you know, bike and walk in that neighborhood, and it's very active with a lot of our neighbors are out walking. We have a lot of people that drive really fast off of 100 down that dirt road, you know, sometimes 35, 40 miles an hour. I don't know how having additional housing there with the condition of that things are at now, I think that would be dangerous for us. And then the other concern that we had is we have a well, same thing, we're in the front yard, so we would want to really make sure that we had enough information to make sure that we wouldn't have trouble with our well moving forward. We've only owned our home there for about a year and a half, and one of the things, of course, that appealed to us is the fact that it is a nice spot in the woods. We're fortunate not to have a lot of neighbors around, so we would just want to make sure that, you know, that's taken into consideration, not to kind of upend the nice little neighborhood that we have. So I don't know if you can, probably it's too soon to answer this question, but in terms of, you had mentioned the drainage and improvement, being able to make improvements to the road, is there any sort of like idea, or has the town considered what they would do if there was better drainage? Like, is that already has that been a thought, or is it not quite there yet?
It has not been planned
Yeah.
yet.
Okay, cool. But I think that's all I've got.
Okay, Amanda, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else like to add comments? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Michael Record. I'm the owner of the property, and I just thought I would just stand up and just let you know in my own words, just kind of what I was thinking in coming up with this idea to change the zone on the old Gray Road. I thought that it would probably fit into the neighborhood a little bit better if there were some houses on the road, because I do have frontage on both the Old Gray Road and Route 100. And so with the commercial being on Route 100, I thought it would be appropriate to just have some residential units on the Old Gray Road. And so that was really kind of what got me started going down this road in the first place. You know, certainly that whole property could be developed commercially, and certainly I've considered that. And you know, if this is you know, if this can't happen, then you know I would probably reconsider options that way. But I think this would fit the neighborhood better, and so that was just kind of what I was thinking. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yes, a gentleman in the back.
Hi, my name is Andy Haggerty, and I own the Emerald Commons to the north of the Board Barn. And in talking with Michael Record, he had mentioned about somehow he was going to develop that land, and we talked about maybe residential, like you said, to better fit the neighborhood, because you know I have 6 units on that north spot, and I certainly don't want an Irving right next to me, and that's an option. And if you go down through the options of the VCC, there's used car lots, there's all kinds of things that you could go there. So I thought it was a great opportunity to have that kind of fit the neighborhood. And I get people get upset when change is happening, and we went to neighbors and tried to talk to them and say, here's what we went on 2 different nights this past week, and try and let them know where we're at and what we're trying to do. And as an abutter, I'm the biggest abutter out of anybody. If you look at that, and there's several hundred feet that I abut the Board Barn property, and I would rather not have any more commercial myself. But I'm also the guy that's going to buy these lots from Michael if it gets approved. So, you know. And also the road does suck. I get it. There are also other ways to get out. You know, there's 2 other ways, Highland and George, so you can come out off of the other spots instead of that bad intersection there. And the one positive would be, you know, Michael would give an easement to the town to help improve the road. So just something I wanted to add. I'm in favor of this. So.
Can you elaborate on what do you mean you're going to buy the lots from him if it goes through?
If he gets approval from you guys, it goes to town council, it comes back, he goes to subdivision, gets the lots, I'm going to buy them and develop them as I develop the 6 units to the north on the Emerald Commons. And that's why I wanted to do a duplex, the one closest to the Emerald Commons units.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. You raised your hand earlier. Did you?
Yeah.
You have? Could you get to the mic though, so people at home could hear?
If it was commercial, it still has to have a 50-foot buffer, right? To a residential area?
Without looking, anybody off the top
Carla,
of their
how
head?
do, it does, yes, but I'm not sure it would to Old Gray Road. Would it, do you need a rear buffer when the rear is a road?
Well, it's a residential neighborhood, though.
I'd have to look at it and figure out how this would apply, but
And it doesn't have, there's no side buffers required. It's only on the
there
rear.
are setbacks.
There's
for
setbacks.
The lots,
They're
yeah.
right. But it's only a 15-foot side setback.
When they put the board barn in, they did require a 50-foot front and a buffer, a landscape buffer, and from the Old Gray Road.
Linda, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that at the mic? Thank you very much. Sorry.
When they put the board barn in, they did require a 50-foot setback from the Old Gray Road, and they did require a landscape buffer. We had problems with Mr. Record because Mr. Record decided that he didn't want to abide by that, and he culled out an area of the woods within that 50-foot buffer, and was one morning early, was punching through onto the old Gray Road to set up an entry to that culled out area, and was planning for trucks to come down and deliver the trees to be stored in that culled out area. I called Bill Shane and had the police come up, and we had a very negative exchange in the middle of the road. And it ended that he ended up having, I don't know if he was fined, he had to put money in escrow, and he had to replant the trees. So, you know, that puts a bad taste when he's trying to do something right now in, you know, for me. Because that was not an upstanding action.
Okay, thank you. Yes, yes, sir. At the mic, yeah?
If you, I mean, that's kind of deceptive. If you look at the area behind the board barn, it looks like there's a lot of space, but I got to tell you, in the wintertime, you can see clear through to the board barn. I mean, there really isn't all that much room, and that's one of the lots. So if they clear that out to put a house in, it's going to be, you know, the space is going to be cleared back to 26. I mean, you might as well say that we're going to be, you know, seeing traffic on 26-100.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no hands, I will now close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for discussion.
Did Lee have comments on this one?
I'm sorry?
Did Lee have comments on this one?
Only that she saw, said it seemed like it appeared to be a very reasonable zoning change request at this time. And I would point out that, of course, she hadn't heard public opinion. And I think one of my thoughts is the point that if it stayed VCC, could be commercial, whether it's a CN Brown, whatever, you know, it could be commercial. And it sounds like the residents, the people living there now, know that and would prefer, at this time at least, that it remain commercial. But that does complicate it a little for me in terms of which way I would think. But I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on this. And so, Jason.
Well, first off, I appreciate the offer to do the drainage. I think that would be a great thing for the town, regardless of this, whether this goes through. That would be a wonderful thing to do to help that road be able to make upgrades that last. That would be a nice thing. I appreciate wanting to capitalize on the land there, and I think in today's market, house lots certainly will sell in this town. That makes a lot of sense. However, I also think small zoning changes like this are sort of a dangerous thing and not really fair to people that have purchased land previously. You buy land in a zone and you sort of expect that zone not to change. And whether that zone is what you're in or across the street, you sort of think that you bought in a certain area, you have certain expectations, and that those aren't going to change often, and certainly not a few acres at a time. So I sort of have a problem with that. And some of us in this town think that we need more commercial small businesses, so I'd be much more in favor of that, especially with our overflowing schools. I know that's not the job of this board, but it's a very real issue in this town right now. And so 5 more houses on that area adds kids potentially, adds a lot of load onto a small road, and I would find it hard to support that sort of change. That's it.
Thank you, Jason. Steve.
Thank you, Paul. Bill mentioned it was about 10 years ago that this area was rezoned, and I have a little bit of a personal background with that. Prior to the rezoning, the town council appointed a committee which was known as the Route 100 Advisory Committee, and Carla, you were involved with that. And I recall that committee being fairly large, and a good number of residents of the Route 100 corridor and the West Cumberland area were on it, together with people from other parts of town. And we spent, I think, more than 2 years from the starting gun until the finished product in coming up with a series of recommendations. And basically what that committee recommended was sort of a full-scale zoning change from the gray line down to the Falmouth line, and to convert what were 2 existing zones, local business and highway commercial, into 5 new zones of varying levels of intensity. The heart of which was the so-called VCC, or Village Center Commercial Zone, sort of an expansion of the former highway commercial zone. And although we know we knew at the time there were great many homes in that area, they were all grandfathered and so forth. The goal was, though, to focus commercial development in that area, as it was so close to the Blackstrap Road and Skillen Road area, and there were other businesses there already. The committee's recommendations went through the whole planning board review process and the town council review process, and in whatever year it was, they were adopted. I'm sorry, I can't recall, who was notified of what and when, but I know that we went through very extensive notification procedures because we had a lot of people here in this room.
I got a thing to fill out.
Oh, well, let me just finish up. I'm just saying that we did notify residents along the entire corridor, and many of them came and offered some very helpful input, not just for this area, but points north and south as well. So, commercial property in town is at a premium. There isn't very much of it. And I share Jason's view on the value of the commercially zoned property now and what it could mean for the town if it is in fact commercially developed. What I'm about to say is probably going to make some people groan, but it's been 10 years, give or take, since these zoning changes were adopted. Since that time, public water has come in, and the area has never been restudied since that time to find out whether the goals of the committee were achieved, and if not, why not, and if so, where were they best achieved, and so forth. I would not be inclined to rezone this particular parcel without some sort of restudy of the entire zoning of the Route 100 corridor, with particular reference to the VCC, to find out, what could be done in a coherent, consistent manner that meets the goals of the comprehensive plan and meets the current goals of the town. If we do it on an ad hoc or lot-by-lot basis, my concern is we're just going to end up with a kind of a crazy quilt of lots and uses that frankly may not fit all that well together. Now, at some point, zones abut each other. One side of the road is one zone and the other side is the other. And for those of you who live on the old gray road, you do face a dilemma, knowing that this lot, which is just over 7 acres all told in size, could be developed entirely commercial right now without any zoning change at all. If it is rezoned in part to be residential, you know that you're probably looking at 3 small single-family homes and a duplex. And that's a real dilemma, and there's this risk either way, I guess I would say. But I think to do this in a sensible way, we ought to take a fresh look at the area in light of the past 10 years' experience and the addition of public water and what impact, if any, that might have on available options, and see what works best for the area and for the residents.
Thank you, Steve. Bill?
I want to piggyback on what Jason and Steve said. I'm not in favor of rezoning this at this time. Commercial property is at a premium. We have a problem, like Jason mentioned, that we add residences. If you have 10 units there and they have 2 children each, that's 10 more children that'll be going to the school. There's a financial impact on that, which outweighs the amount of taxes that would be collected. Even though that's not our issue here tonight, I just think we shouldn't change it to a residential zone.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll
Josh?
be at least a slight voice of dissent from the others. And while I heard the residents' concerns, and I don't take them lightly, the VCC zone, the lot size is exactly the same as the VMDR. So while you couldn't have a duplex business, I don't believe, you could have at least 4 commercial uses along Old and Gray Road if they split that up and were to find commercial buyers. And I think that would be that may be a less likely outcome than if it gets rezoned. The outcome is pretty likely that there will be 4 residences. I think the compatibility between 4 commercial uses along Old and Gray Road, or the potential for 4 commercial uses along Old Gray Road, is much less desirable than residential use. So to me, residential use is a better fit for that area than commercial use. So I would be in favor of recommending a zoning change.
Thank you, Josh. Ann, do you have comments or thoughts?
Well, I tend to agree with Josh that it seems that residential use along Old Gray Road would make would be more compatible with the neighborhood. However, I also feel that if there was a study, a zoning study, that concluded that this should be commercially zoned, and things have somewhat changed, that it would be worthwhile to take another look at that before an ad hoc change was made. So I guess I would go along with Steve's comment that we should look at the whole picture again, and I wouldn't be inclined to make a minor zoning change at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up comments? Well, as I said, at least my opinion from the beginning was as if I were Linda or one of the other residents, I think it would be hard, to what I want residential zoning there or what I want further commercial. And I think I think the water issue and the traffic issue would be resolved if and when it ever came to the subdivision proposal. I think that it wouldn't get by us or any part of the town without resolution on those types of issues. The buffering is always an issue, usually a big part of a subdivision proposal, if it came to that. So I think there could be buffering, maybe an improvement over what you have now. Of course, I have no way of knowing that. Very difficult for me to decide. I like Steve's idea of, I don't know about a full-scale study, but at least looking at it again from the bigger picture is what would be best for everyone in that area. So I think, again, we're just making a recommendation to council, which has to make probably the harder decision Monday night. So at this point, unless somebody has another comment, I think we need, yes, Jason, you have other?
Just briefly, if this doesn't go through, I still would encourage the owner to investigate, commercial development in some manner, working with the residents nearby, and obviously with proper buffers and stuff, because the extra revenue to the town would be great, and more small businesses in this town would be a wonderful thing. Businesses and revenue that don't put a load on the schools otherwise. So that's just it.
Okay. And I will point out that, as I said at the beginning, there are only 6 of us here tonight. So, in terms of a majority. Carla, do you have something before we have a motion?
I do. I have some
Okay.
information on the buffer requirements. In our subdivision ordinance, it's in section 250-10, which is our clustered subdivision ordinance, which is what I think would apply to this particular layout. It's
If it were changed, or
if
the
it
way?
were changed
Okay,
and it were developed residentially. Although a commercial subdivision is a subdivision as well, so it could apply either way. So it says a buffer of at least 75 feet in width shall be created around the entire perimeter of the subdivision. It talks about subdivisions that front on Tuttle, Greeley, Blanchard, or Forsyth Road. The buffers along those roads shall be 150 feet. It goes on to say, where possible, existing trees and vegetation shall be preserved in buffers, except that vegetation classified as invasive may be removed.
So around the entire subdivision, 75 feet. Okay. Thank you. Anyone up to making a motion?
I think I'm gonna be on the losing side, so I'll refrain from making a motion.
Okay.
If you would like, or I can.
We can vote against you,
Oh,
Yeah, Jason, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the town council on a proposed zone change to rezone a 3.35 acre portion of a 7.16 acre lot located at 222 Gray Road, tax assessor map U20, lot 66, from village center commercial VCC zone to the village medium density residential VMDR zone.
All right, so your proposal is to do that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna vote against it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll
So,
second.
Josh seconded. So discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I think I just say to the council that if you were to approve this motion, I would like to see that the buffer between the remaining commercial lot, and the to be created residential lots, that it comply with it would have to comply with never mind, because it would have to comply to subdivision, sorry. I strike that.
Okay, and everyone's clear on the motion. Steve?
I want to be absolutely clear. The motion is in favor of the requested change.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? So 5-1 opposed. So the recommendation to council is to not make the change. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you for coming and for your comments.
Thank you.
Well,
Still-
yes, we have
still
another
in
item, yeah. Is that all right? We can continue, okay. All right, the second agenda item tonight is a public hearing for recommendation to the town council on proposed amendments to chapter 229, parentheses, site plan review, section 10, parentheses, approval standards and criteria, subsection H, exterior lighting of the Cumberland Code. And I believe the town manager, Mr. Shane, will introduce the item.
Just very briefly, your town planner has crafted the language for you tonight, has brought it to the council as well as the ordinance committee, and I think it's fairly simple. I think we've added some technical details to the language that was missing before. What I have up on the screen On the bottom is what the current exterior lighting standard is. It's about 3.5 lines. And up top, we talk about types of fixtures, we talk about hours of operation, we talk about the night sky requirements. I think we've added a little bit more technical standards that have been kind of missing from the lighting ordinance, the lighting section, review section of your ordinance sections. So I think it works. This pretty much came out of the development down on Route 1. There was a lot of conflict between neighbors and commercial businesses. I will share with you, the businesses truly stepped up and worked hard at trying to get lights on timers, get lights on off after hours of operation. And a lot of the things you see here were a lot of the things that Carla had successfully negotiated with the commercial uses. And it worked. No one was fully happy, but I think it got us to a better place. So we are supportive of at least adding this language, tweak away. There's no pride in authorship here. It's truly to try to get some understanding about turning off lights, after business hours. Now, we will share with you that we've had some pushback from the insurance agents of the businesses at times. They wanted to make sure that wall packs illuminated, exits, that people, if they came to the building at night, would be able to get in without, feeling like they're tripping over themselves or whatever. And I think we did that pretty successfully. Those lights are mounted to the building near the doors and the exits and are pointed directly downward. So full cutoff fixtures, those are usually referred to. Most of the parking lots you see are full cutoff fixtures. Well, the one thing, if you drive on Route 1 any time of night, and I was out there at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning with police officers just so I didn't get arrested, we were driving around, and the majority of our businesses have their lights and parking lot lights on all night. So is that necessary? And I would argue that probably not. So moving forward with, we don't have a lot of development left on Route 1. But we certainly could on Route 100. I think it works that, within a certain time after a business closes, if we could, shut the lights off, nobody wants to see, basically rows and rows and rows of parking lots that are empty at night. So I think it does work toward what we're trying to achieve here in this town. So I would direct your questions to Carla. I think she did a great job in crafting this. I think it's very simple. And I think it gets closer to what we'd like to see from most of our commercial development.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. Question before open to the public. So and we can read this later if you think to have, so folks at home can hear it.
Yeah.
But in the language, there's in the middle there, it says to restrict the maximum apex angle of the cone of illumination to 150 degrees. So I was interested. I wasn't really sure what the apex angle meant, but are you talking about 150 upwards?
No, down, cone, like a cone.
Cone
Yeah.
downward. So the apex angle from
From
there
top
down
to
is
the
150 degrees. Okay, and the second question, presuming because of motion detection and turned off when detected motion ceases, I'm presuming you're not concerned about how long after those lights stay on, because there was nothing about time. And I realize I don't think we need anything there, but
Yeah.
you consider that and you think it's fine just to leave it open-ended? So the
do,
motion, it could turn the light on, it could stay on for an hour or 2
Right,
hours or something. Just like we can adjust our garage openers, and lights
Right.
at home. So you're good with
It
that?
could go either way. Usually they don't stay on very long.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
normally there's-
you could specify it.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious if you'd
Yeah.
thought about that. Any other comments before we open? Josh?
Carly, I wonder, my feeling is the part you struck out about, adequate exterior lighting to provide for its safe use maybe needs to get put in up by minimized to the greatest extent possible, because in my very literal reading, minimized to the greatest extent possible means no exterior lighting. So I guess I might propose something like the use of exterior lights shall be limited to that required, to allow for safe use, something like that.
Okay.
Other than that, I think it's spectacular.
And on that point, back to Bill, he left. Were the insurance concerns regarding this new language or just prior language?
It had to do with the negotiations, the informal negotiations that were going back and forth between the abutters to the Belted Cow development on Route 1 and what the town was trying to facilitate in reducing the extent of lighting, and it was on all night long, and was that necessary? And butters were sending photographs of it, and it was pretty
So it wasn't related
powerful.
to this
So it wasn't
language.
related to the ordinance, it was just simply, it was sort of the owners of the properties just wanted us to know that, look, insurance isn't unconcerned about the amount of lighting that these properties have.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other, Steve?
I would just respond to Josh's comment briefly. Under site plan review, exterior lighting is one of the criteria that we apply. So I don't think that this language could ever be interpreted to do away with that requirement. If it said minimized to the greatest extent possible. It needs some, I think, to satisfy subparagraph H.
Well, but this would be that paragraph, correct?
The old section H will go away,
Right. This would
and
become
this will be
that
the
new
new
would take
paragraph.
section
place.
H. Yep.
Right.
Right.
So reducing, there would be no other standard. This would be the standard to meet.
Mhm.
So there's no other standard that would say you have to have some exterior lighting to provide for the adequate, safe use of the property.
Well, I think where it says the use of exterior lights, so forth and so on, implies that there shall be some exterior lights, but they should be minimized. I don't mean to split hairs, but, yeah.
I guess I don't see.
So what is your
The-
language, Josh?
My concern is we're not spelling out what is the true measuring stick. The reason we have exterior lighting and we want exterior lighting is to allow for the safe use of the site. And in striking out that portion, I think we lose that true measuring stick. I am all for minimizing it to that point, but I don't want to minimize it beyond that point.
Is there any conflict if we leave that middle sentence that's struck out right now, leave it back in there? Is it
That would be
conflict with
my
anything else?
recommendation.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that's sort of what,
Good
yeah,
solution.
and Bill
Work.
agrees with
And-
that. And
Yeah.
So that's one edit, and then do we want to put within a reasonable time on the detected motion sensing when it ceases for a reasonable period of time, something like that?
Yep.
2 edits?
All right, thank you. Anything else?
I don't know how we measure reasonable, though, but that's.
Well,
Well, it's,
open-ended.
yeah, it's
I-
better than
I agree
nothing.
with the idea.
Yep.
So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Yes, sir. Ron?
Good evening, Ron Kopp from West Cumberland. I think the plan here was just to give you guys some guidance so that, God forbid, that Urban Oil wanted to go in where the board barn is, that it isn't lit up like the service plazas out on the turnpike. I mean, I live in West Cumberland and I can look at the glow from the service plazas from the turnpike. You can see it from Cumberland Center. And I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, and I don't mind omitting what you just talked about. But I think the purpose is to give them some kind of a guideline as to what they can have and not to put the main mall out on West Cumberland or down on the Foreside. So I think they've done a pretty good job. And I think that just gives everybody a little bit of guidelines so that if a new business comes into town, that they can't light it up, and turn it into daylight 24 hours a day. The only question that I do have is, during hours of operation, let's just say that a Cumberland Farms moves in somewhere and they're open 24 hours. That's the only concern that I would have. And that's all I have, so.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you would not have lights if you were open 24 hours. But 150 degree apex
Right, I think
angle.
you're at least minimizing the impact to the extent
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it's not gonna light up the night sky, cause everything's cut off and down
It's
one.
Going down. The public hearing is still open. Anyone else have comments? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Jason?
Is there a cumulative measurement? Like, this sort of talks about individual lights, but is there a, to stop the glow? Because conceivably, behind the board barn, there could be some commercial, and that's going to bleed over into residential. Is there a measurement, 100 meters away of the?
The ordinance right now says that you can't have light trespass beyond the property line. So if you remember seeing some of these photometric plans where there's
Yep.
little numbers,
Yep.
0.0, 0.10, at the property line has to be 0.0. So that's your cumulative impact.
We could, want me to talk about nits for a while?
That'd be great. What time? We have plenty of time. It's
I guess that was a no. Other comments?
Do we want to address the hours of operation thing, or leave that open?
I mean, I don't think that is for the exterior lighting standard.
Yeah.
Was it?
Okay, so I think as part of the motion, that for the record and for people at home, should we read the language the way it would, in fact, I wonder if, Carla, if you could do that with the addition, including the the struck out component. And
Sure.
then we could have a motion after you read that section, given you're
Okay.
largely the author.
The second edit, though, about how long the motion detector light can stay on, you wanted to do that?
When the detected motion ceases for a reasonable period of time.
Ceases for a reasonable period of time, okay. Okay, so
All right,
the-
so Carla will read the language as will be recommended or not.
Section H of the site plan ordinance, exterior lighting. The use of exterior light shall be minimized to the greatest extent possible. Exterior lighting of commercial buildings, parking areas, and signs shall only be allowed during the actual hours of operation and 1 hour prior to and 1 hour following the hours of operation. Low-level pedestrian lighting, parentheses, no greater than 14 feet in height, close parentheses, is permitted at doorways but must be shielded to restrict the maximum apex angle of the cone of illumination to 150 degrees. The proposed development must have adequate exterior lighting to provide for its safe use during nighttime hours if such use is contemplated. All other light fixtures shall be motion sensing, set to illuminate a limited area when motion is detected and turned off when the detected motion ceases for a reasonable period of time. All exterior lighting must utilize full cutoff fixtures to avoid glare and adverse impact on the neighboring properties and rights of way, and the unnecessary lighting of the night sky.
Thank you.
Then
Josh?
I will make a motion that we recommend to the town council the proposed exterior light standard as just written by Carla.
I second it.
Bill seconded. A discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. So unanimous, Christine. Thank you very much. So that completes agenda item number 2. Any administrative matters or new business that anyone has? No?
No.
Okay. Steve,
Move we adjourn.
Seconded.
second, all those in favor? Thank you.